Chinese Communist Party might be a master of censorship, but it's struggling with courtship as Chinese people reject the party's needs. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. Before I begin, YouTube is promoting pro-CCP content and trying to silence shows like China Uncensored. When I did an incognito search on YouTube for China, the first China Uncensored video that came up was the number 552nd video. So since YouTube loves the CCP so much, show how much you love the CCP by leaving a comment below with Chinese leader Xi Jinping's absolute favorite, a honeypot emoji. And it's appropriate I'm talking about love, because did you know that the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese people are in love? Just like Romeo and Juliet. That had a happy ending, right? Yes, the Chinese people are crazy for the CCP, according to the CCP's official outlet, People's Daily. And why do the Chinese people love the Communist Party so much, the outlet asks? It's because the party has always adhered to its original intention and mission of seeking happiness for the Chinese people. And no matter how difficult and torturous the path is, this was never changed and will never change. Sure, the torture along the path might have been caused directly by the CCP's own policies over the decades that killed millions of Chinese people, but hey, how would you know true happiness if you haven't experienced soul-crushing misery as well? You're welcome. Anyway, with such a strong, suffocating bond between the CCP and the Chinese people, of course there's great unity in China, according to China's leader Xi Jinping. Ultimately meaning that forces who want to break apart China are daydreaming. So suck it, Trump. China is propelled by the power of Stockholm Syndrome. True love. As this powerful video posted by the Chinese government points out, you can launch your tariff war and play hardball, but China will stand firm no matter how hard the wind blows, no matter how clouds rage. No matter how many people other than the CCP themselves suffer. That's a sacrifice they're willing to make. And don't worry about China stumbling and falling like these Chinese robots at a half marathon in Beijing last month, because Xi reportedly visited an AI incubator recently and set his plan in motion. He urged young people to cherish a deep love for the country, set their sights on serving the nation, and strengthen their capabilities. And if you should be stuck in a dystopian and economic nightmare with no future job prospects or potential of leading a fulfilling life, maybe don't complain so much about it, okay? Love you, bye. During the visit, he also said that the youth should closely link their personal endeavors with the country's future. So as always, China is doing great and the country's development has a bright future ahead. But as always, I'm left to be the party pooper. Because the truth is that many Chinese people are far from in love and aligned with the Communist Party or its vision for the country these days. And despite all the bloated talk of strong bonds, the problem might actually be the party's own disconnect with the Chinese people. You see, the CCP is great at telling people what not to do through its censorship and constant crackdowns. So it's no surprise that according to Freedom House, China is home to one of the world's most restrictive media environments, or as they call it in China. Because of that, many Chinese people carry out their own form of self-censorship to avoid getting in trouble with the authorities. At the same time, the Chinese government has launched large-scale crackdowns to put a halt to certain activities and to impose its will on industries, from education to the tech world to the financial sector. Like in all loving, respectful, totally not at all controlling or abusive relationships. The clampdowns have left their mark, with former high-earning Chinese bankers giving up their careers in finance, with some even turning to stand-up comedy instead. You know it's grim when their future seems brighter, collecting drink tickets to trading stocks. But while the government might have had success forcing people to do things, it's failed to encourage and inspire its citizens to do things. For years now, the CCP has urged Chinese people to get married and have kids. Which is hard, because how are they going to love someone else when they're already so in love with the CCP? She has said that it's crucial for women to be good wives and mothers to ensure the healthy growth of the next generation, and that they should start a new trend of family, not just for their own sake, but for the sake of family harmony, social harmony, national development, and national progress. Yes, because when I think of having kids, I don't think of the cost or changes to my lifestyle. I think of what it can do for my government. That puts me in the baby-making mood. Recently, Chinese women have even received unsolicited text messages from family doctors inquiring about their period, seemingly for the state. Which sounds creepy, but given their history of torture and murder, it's nice to see the CCP not wanting their citizens to bleed. That was a period joke. I'm a versatile comedian. At the same time, Xi has called on Chinese people, especially young people, to eat bitterness and endure hardship to build a strong nation in the face of difficult times. With the party telling young people they shouldn't be too picky about the work they do, even if they hold high-level qualifications from top universities. And for those that already have jobs in the state bureaucracy, Xi has highlighted the importance of tackling formalism and bureaucratism to improve the party's conduct. That's the problem with kids these days. They don't understand the value of having their hopes and dreams absolutely crushed, all in the name of fixing their government's idiotic mistakes. But all this pestering of the Chinese people isn't working. For one thing, formalism in Chinese bureaucracy remains a major hurdle against decent public service and good governance, because many Chinese officials are worried about being scapegoated by higher-level authorities, and this leads them to focus on leaving the right paper trails for their own protection, so much so that many believe that the success of any actual policy has little to do with them. Can't imagine why China's in the state it's in when its officials have all the confidence of a hypochondriac chihuahua in witness protection. Also, instead of eating bitterness, a lot of Chinese people have responded with the lying flat and letting it rot trends, where they reject many of the grueling standards of Chinese society and instead embrace a low-key lifestyle with more time for themselves. So to keep the relationship analogy going, they're saying, I need my space. It's not you, actually it is you. And when it comes to Chinese family life, marriage rates fell again in the first quarter of this year and were down 20% compared to last year, reaching less than half of the high of nearly 13.5 million marriages in 2013. As China's marriage rate hits a low, concerns about population decline are skyrocketing since family planning primarily happens within the institution of marriage in China. In other words, China wants people to get married and have children, but no one is listening. Maybe another round of texts asking women about their periods will get them all hot and bothered. This clear inability to energize the Chinese people is a major problem for the CCP. The Chinese government could really use a spirited population in the tariff war with the US, not just to rally around the leadership in this time of crisis, but also to follow the official calls to buy the tons of products that are no longer going to the US market. So as a result, China has launched an all-out effort to boost consumption as a way to deal with weak consumer demand. Yet Chinese consumers haven't been rushing out to hoard Chinese products, choosing to remain cautious instead, partly because of the dismal economic outlook and partly because no one knows the pitfalls of buying things made in China more than China. Long-term, the lack of public support is posing huge challenges to Xi's great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. It's Xi's cardinal vision to turn China into the world's leading power. And to succeed, it requires a motivated Chinese public that is willing and able to consume, produce, and reproduce to the tune of the CCP. Since the party is currently failing to inspire Chinese people to do any of these things, the whole rejuvenation project, Xi's legacy, is under threat. So, why is the CCP's choking grip on the Chinese people not translating into more party-approved rejuvenation behavior? Well, a recent story about a person in China actually going the extra mile illustrates the issue. Back in April, a toddler in Xinjiang got stuck 40 meters, about 130 feet, down a narrow well and was in dire need of help to get back up. Local authorities arrived at the scene, likely because Lassie died decades ago, but failed to get the toddler out of the well using conventional rescue equipment. The situation was looking hopeless when a thin 24-year-old auxiliary officer named Bupatam Abdulkader stepped forward and volunteered to go down the narrow well. She was lowered down into the well, and despite facing tight spaces and low oxygen, she successfully re-emerged with the toddler before both were rushed to the hospital. Afterwards, Chinese media lined up to praise her as a model citizen for her heroism and self-sacrifice. The local authorities got involved too, presenting her with a reward of 10,000 yuan, about $1,400 and nominated her for the country's Model of Bravery honor. So, heroism performed and heroism rewarded. End of story. You know me well enough to know that there's about to be a bigger butt than on a Kardashian. Chinese social media users soon started to look closer at the relatively small reward for her life-saving bravery, as well as her job title as an auxiliary officer, which means that rather than being under formal hire, she's support personnel for the regular police force, receiving inferior pay and benefits, even though she took on the most responsibility and the highest risk. And many users wanted her to receive a formal position for her outstanding bravery. So with pressure mounting, the local authorities took the extraordinary step of promoting her from 7th to 5th rank within the auxiliary system. It was supposed to be seen as a big thing, but the gesture fell completely flat and sparked intense criticism online since she didn't actually receive a better position or better benefits, just a higher rank in the same second-tiered system. But after that, the authorities refused to budge, issuing a statement saying that any transition into a formal position needed to follow strict procedures. Because according to the statement, it's about system design. That's despite the fact that it's well known that the two-tiered employment system she finds herself in is highly discriminatory against people of her rank. And rising out of it for her is literally harder than rising out of the bottom of a deep well. But hey, finally, someone took a stand for obscure Chinese bureaucratic procedures. If you ask me, whoever wrote that statement is the true hero of this story. Even Chinese state media seemed to share that sentiment, with one journal praising the official response as exemplary crisis management that balanced institutional constraints with public sentiment. Yeah, besides, what's the problem? Bupatam just did her duty to the motherland as is expected of any young person living in Xi Jinping's China. They're expected to be a country full of superheroes, but they better not dress like them. Xi himself says something similar all the time. And that's the problem. When even the actions of China's heroes are taken for granted or only rewarded with empty gestures, who's that going to motivate? In the same way, expecting Chinese people to put reality aside and work harder for less, consume more Chinese products, and have more kids for the sake of national progress is just going to lead to a whole lot of nothing. Sure, on the incentive front, the Chinese authorities have tried to combine their appeal to patriotic duty with rewards. Bupatam was offered $1,400. Economic packages to boost consumption have been released, and baby making has been encouraged with free milk and childcare subsidies in some areas. But clearly, these steps aren't enough to get Chinese people to buy into Xi's rejuvenation project. Turns out people aren't optimistic about the future when you've made the present so nightmarish. It probably doesn't help that more traditional authoritarian strategies have been employed as well, like the CCP forcing officials to study Xi's thinking. A move that only adds to the nonsensical burdens on the bureaucracy that Xi has otherwise said he wants to get rid of. Or the Chinese company that told its single workers earlier this year that they had around 6 months to get married, otherwise they'd be fired. I'm sure that makes for great pickup lines at a bar. Hey, do your feet hurt? I hope so, because if you don't marry me this week, I'm going to lose my safety net, so please don't run away. The major drawback of the coercive approach is that there are limits today to how much smack the authorities can serve the Chinese people before they smack back. The protests against Xi's zero-COVID policy clearly showed that the Chinese people eventually got fed up with eating bitterness, especially for the people locked in their homes for weeks on end when bitterness was literally the only thing they had to eat. So I'm expecting one of these days, the Chinese people will hand the CCP divorce papers. And remember, as I said in the beginning, YouTube is trying to bury China Uncensored. Even if you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, YouTube might not notify you about new episodes, because why would they think you wanted to be notified? That's why we created a new, free, weekly newsletter that has all of that week's episodes so you can see the videos YouTube didn't tell you about, plus other exclusive analysis you won't see elsewhere. So be like Truck Captain Stumpy, who says he's headed to the Substack newsletter now since YouTube isn't even putting China Uncensored in his feed, even though he's subscribed. The link to the newsletter is below. And while you're down there, don't forget to leave a honeypot comment. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.